This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and today I'm with John Redpath, who's a lead counsellor at Guildford Borough Council. He's got a wide portfolio, including economic development, social enterprise, rural economy, heritage, community assets, and customer services. And it's customer services that's the main subject of this interview. Hello, John. Thank you for giving your time to the Guildford Dragon for this interview.
Absolute pleasure, Martin.
Okay, now you were grilled by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee this week, and the chairman, Paul Spooner, said that he was shocked at some of your responses, including your request to be copied in to any complaints individual councillors had about the customer services at Guildford Borough Council. Have you been copied in, and how many have you received?
I don't know if this is public knowledge amongst all councillors, but certainly it's knowledge for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee councillors. And I followed it up with an email because I was having my meeting with the customer services team the very next day. So I followed it up with an email asking them with some urgency to send me in all these various complaints so that I could follow them up and have the customer service team follow them up. Because
you were warned that you were going to be flooded, weren't you?
Flooded.
Yeah.
I may still be flooded, but there's a dam holding it back at the minute because I received one email, a very useful one, but only one so far in any case.
One single email?
One single email and a very useful email about how when you want to report your food waste bin not being emptied, you have to report one of the bigger bins hasn't been emptied. There's not a selection for food waste,
okay, but during that committee meeting, you did admit there is a problem at the moment with customer services at the council. So what has happened? Why have customer services deteriorated at GBC?
Yes, there is a problem. I must apologise for the poor service on behalf of the staff. The staff are working their socks off to get it better. No one's happy with where it is at the minute. This is a knock-on effect from Future Guildford, which is the big restructuring needed by the council due to the cuts from central government. About £4 million. We're about £4 million worse off a year now than we were 3 or 4 years ago. We've managed to save £8 million to date. We have to carry on saving money by rationalising, restructuring and so forth. And one of the things that was restructured was the customer services. Instead of phoning through to, say, a planning department and getting a planning customer services team, or phoning refuse and getting a refuse customer service team, Ignite, the consultants advised that it would be better to have a pool of customer consultants, customer service consultants, to answer all questions, and that's what we're working on. It's been tricky hiring staff. We're still not up to full strength, and they're not all fully trained yet.
Okay, so in the old days, then we would ring 50-50-50, speak to someone, and be put through, hopefully, to someone in the relevant department. Why did you change that? Why did you change that system, which in my experience worked quite well, until the new one was up and ready to go?
Basically, retention of staff during Future Guildford, I think it was about 10% of staff needed to be shed. All done with the unions. Unions were incredibly helpful with this, and voluntary redundancy was offered as an option. Now, when you start by offering voluntary redundancy, you do tend to lose possibly the wrong people. The people who've been in service the longest, maybe the brightest flames as well, who think, you know, well, I can get a job anyway. But you certainly don't lose people in the right way. So many staff left then. Many, for instance, if you imagine phoning into planning and you speak to a planning consultant who's actually quite a clever planning officer, well, then he'll stay in planning. He ain't going to go answering the phone in customer service and talking to you about refuse. So you know, you had these specialists, as I understand it, and they were distributed according to their talents.
Okay. Now, how does GBC measure customer service satisfaction?
In a way, that's quite easy to do. If I said to you right now, if I said that 75% of all inquiries were being handled online with no complaints, and our telephones were answered within 20 seconds, I would say that's 100% satisfaction. Anybody complained to me about that, I'd say, you know, that's poor. And we measure all these metrics. Everything is measured. The time it takes to attend to a call, how often the website's used. We want it to be used 75% of the time. We want people to go online as a minimum. At the moment, we're at about 45%. As soon as we get more online, using online, which is really, really easy way of doing things, it'll free up those people on the telephone.
So is your current measurement accurately telling you the level of dissatisfaction, do you think? Because anecdotally, there's a lot of dissatisfaction. Do you think your measurement tools are giving you an accurate picture of that?
We're using an information tracking CRM sort of dual database, which can track all sorts of things. And these numbers, I get them sent to me. I haven't had them today yet, but every Friday.
But do you feel you're getting an accurate picture?
Okay, my phone here is publicly listed. I might really be putting my neck out here. My phone number here is publicly listed on the council website. Yeah. I am responsible for customer services. This week, I can promise you, I've had one customer, one client, one resident complaining about poor customer services to me.
Okay. So but it might be that simply, you know, people don't, the first port of call when they're unhappy and they slam the phone down might not be, right, who's the lead counsellor for this? I'm going to find out his number, which isn't there on the website.
No. One of the problems is possibly that they go to next door.
Yeah.
Or something, and then, you know, it all blows up. And actually, the customer, the resident's complaint doesn't actually get handled. It you know.
No, they sound off, but it doesn't get, might not help. Yeah. Okay.
Many of them are actually phoning their counsellors, which is possibly the right thing to do. Sadly, some are going on next door, and then quite often counsellors pick it up from next door, and then it gets into the system that way. But
it's not surprising they go on next door, is it? Because they're angry that they can't get the information or the answer they want.
Do you know this year, at peak, this year, do you know how many calls, have you any idea how many calls Guildford Borough Council were receiving a day?
I have no idea.
Roughly 950.
Right.
Last week it was 417. This is the average calls for the week, 417. So it's come right down. At the beginning of the year, some calls at peak time. Everybody wants to phone up at 9 o'clock in the morning or at lunchtime. At the beginning of the year, when we were having those 900 plus calls, some of them were not being answered in 20 minutes. Some of them were not being answered at all. Come down to 417 calls, and last week we had 70% of the calls were answered, and I think it was 44% of them were answered in less than 20 seconds. And
what is that measurement? When does it start and when does it finish?
Yeah, okay. So basically, when you first phone in, you will get a recorded message. The recorded message will give you some advice that maybe you should try online, and advise you. I think at the moment it advises you to sign up for a MyGuildford account as well, which is a really useful thing. At the end of that message, you're given some selections. I think it's 8 selections. You then choose one of those selections. There then may be another selection. And if none of those selections are suitable, then you can continue by speaking to a customer support agent, a customer services agent. And it's from that time that you press that final selection that the 20 seconds or whatever timing starts. And just
Okay, so the tape messages aren't included in that 20 seconds.
No, they're not included, Martin.
Right.
But
and I mean, it's during that period that people's, well, if they're like me, their blood pressure is getting to dangerous levels, and they're having a one-way conversation with the phone, which is probably too blue to broadcast. But do you appreciate that those tape messages can be frustrating themselves?
They frustrate me. You know, when I phone places, they can be, got to be very careful. So you mustn't send people around a loop. I think it's very important that they don't then get sent back somewhere where they first started. And you know, I've tested our system a couple of times with genuine, you know, attempts, litter picking and stuff like that. It doesn't put you in a loop. It does take you a while to get there. And the final choice is if you still want to speak to a customer operator.
Okay. I mean, what I feel when I'm listening to those is you're saving your time or the council's time at my expense because you're using my time. And that's one of the things that makes me angry. But of course, you know, it is true that the council is strapped for cash and you're looking for savings wherever you can. So I guess we have to try and understand that. And you are trying to move people onto a more self-help system through MyGuildford so that they don't actually get in a telephone queue in the first place. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, it's a hard change because, you know, my first reaction is always to go for the phone. I mean, maybe we need an app, I don't know, but if we can make it as easy as possible for the majority of people, and I know there are plenty of people who aren't on the internet and so forth, but if we can get the majority online, to go online, it is quick and easy. If you've got a MyGuildford account, and this is the second time your food waste bin hasn't been emptied, you don't have to put your name and address in and everything else because it knows about you. So that's nice and easy, and you can have it done and dusted, possibly before you've even got through the tape menu on the phone call. But how do we get people to do that? And when we have enough people doing that, we want 75% of people to do that, that will free up the phone operators for people not reporting their food waste not collected, for people who have really, really urgent issues that we should be dealing with.
Okay, well, maybe it will come because, you know, things that we would instinctively use the phone for in the past, like directory inquiries, we wouldn't do that anymore because we know now that that's not the quickest thing to do. So hopefully that will come to pass, and MyGuildford will be seen as the thing to do as soon as you've got a problem. But why not use volunteers to help you answer the phones? What you said at the meeting that it's too complicated a job for that, but you know, we've got special police officers who are working voluntarily for the police. That's a complicated job. Why can't you use volunteers if they're willing to help you?
Well, there's a few things. The first thing that rings bells in my head, and I know nothing about HR at all, but possibly the unions may have something to say about it. But the other thing is that training in some of these matters, that it's pretty, a lot of it's fairly tricky. Okay, it'd be great if we had a volunteer who came along with customer service experience, and then we just had to tell them how Guildford did things. That would give a shortcut. But a volunteer just off the street, if you like, firstly would have to be trained, and that would make the situation no better than we have now, because one of the problems we have is we're having to train our officers up. But the other thing is, a lot of the information that they might be talking about on the phone is very sensitive. It might be very personal. And you have to know how to deal with that. You have to know that the person you're talking to is a paid professional.
But John, all those arguments are the same for a special constable, aren't they? You know, a special constable has to deal with very tricky problems on occasion. They have to deal with, they have to, you know, the person has to be confident that they're not going to divulge sensitive information in exactly the same way. So there are such volunteers, aren't there?
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but as I said, they still need to be trained. So there's no real advantage there. And I think
well, sorry, but there is an advantage if you can't recruit at the moment, but you would get a volunteer to do it. That is an advantage, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no, hang on. Going on the no recruit,
Okay,
because we haven't done the latest figures on the
Right.
number of officers. But I mean, I think there might well be an issue having volunteers doing the same job, working alongside paid
okay,
employees. But that's an HR thing, Martin.
yeah,
You know, my biggest problem with it would be that we would still have to train them, or at least train them in the basics.
Okay.
You know, the more popular things. But
okay. So just what's the summary of the recruitment situation?
so at the moment, if everybody was there and we didn't have one out on jury service, for instance, we would have 17 in post. We need another 4.
Okay, so
to get
that
up
is
to the
coming
number
along, you're
2.
saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's being advertised. We are getting people. We're paying, you know, the going rate, if that's the right word for it. And of course, you get full training and actually a really, you know, you'd think there'd be a thoroughly depressed and fed up team, but you know, I haven't taken them for a drink yet, but I understand occasionally they do go for a pint after work. And you know, it's a nice place to work. It's unfortunate that the council is painted as a, you know, a corporate body that doesn't care about anybody. These people are just really, you know, they're absolute salt of the earth.
Okay, so what's happening going forward? Are you optimistic? And when should we all expect the customer service issue to have been resolved by?
Well, depends on your definition of resolve. So I've set a target of September.
Right.
Okay. You can phone me up again then.
Okay.
Now what's happening going ahead? So basically we've been working on the website, changing the menu items, changing how it operates, putting analytics on there and so forth. For instance, services on the website that are used more than others are moved higher up so you can find them easier and so forth. And the website's now in a condition that from May going onwards in Guildford Library, and I think it's on Tuesdays. I'm sorry, maybe we ought to put a little thing out in the Dragon about that. Pretty sure it's on Tuesdays. The team will be in the library on Tuesdays, inviting the public to use the website to test it out and giving them real sort of life scenarios to try out, and then asking them what they think, what the shortfalls are. So we're not resting there at all. Going forward, the exciting things are we're looking at having a chat function where, you know, that means one of our operators can most probably be dealing with 3 or 4 calls on chat rather than just one call on the phone. And we are about to start looking into AI chat, artificial intelligence chat, whereby you can go on the website 24/7, 365 days a year and talk to a bot.
Right.
And Telford and Wrekin Council have found that this has reduced their calls to customer services by 70% because it's such a clever system. Something like 14,000 different customer questions answered.
Okay, so in sum, you have acknowledged that there's a problem, but you've got lots of things in that are being planned, are being introduced, and you're hoping that the situation, if not completely resolved, will be far improved by September.
That's what we're going for. Of course, we don't know, you know, what's coming ahead from here, whether we're going to have lots more calls from people requiring support from, you know, social services or what have you, from you know, costs of living going up and everything else. But if things stay as they are, it's looking very good. We've got the green shoots coming through, and I would hope that by September we will be in a much better place, and hopefully we may even have that chat function working better.
Okay, now part of your portfolio is also heritage, and during the committee meeting you also said that your preference now is for the museum to be moved to a new location, perhaps part of the North Street development. What's caused that change of mind? Because before you seemed to be committed to keeping where it was, opening it up at the back and introducing toilets and a cafe there, or a tea room there. So what's caused you to change your mind on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to correct Martin, I didn't say anything about North Street. It's so what, you know, we've
sorry, it'd just be another
a new modern building.
Okay.
Could be in North
Right.
Street, could be in Debenhams, could be a whole new building somewhere else. There's no
Okay.
particular site in mind. Now, what swung me? First of all, there are a lot of complexities in fiddling around with the back of a Grade 2, Grade 1 listed building, taking you up to the castle grounds in a hydraulic lift or something like that. That's going to cost an awful lot of money. And speaking to there's at least two people who are, you know, friends of the museum that I know pretty well. And it occurs to me that the really important thing about the museum is the collection. And if we can find some clean white display space, nothing flash or fancy, to put the collection in, such that it's easy to switch it around. There's 90% of what we could display is in store. Now, if we can start rotating displays easily, in the existing museum, if you want to have a display that weighs anything on one of the other floors other than the ground floor, you have to get a special removal company in to do that. You know, and that has an expense. Now, what is important? Is it the collection of a museum that's important, or is it the buildings the museum's in? And I think what you're saying is it's the location.
No, I'm
well, it is if it's near the castle.
Well, I'm saying that the location of the current museum is fortuitously by the castle grounds, which attract a lot of visitors every year, and therefore, if the current low footfall would, you'd imagine, be greatly improved with an entrance to directly to the castle grounds, and where there was also, and within the museum, you know, facility to have a cup of tea or coffee and go to the toilet. But anyway, so I was interested, wondering why you changed your view on that, but you have explained it.
Well, nothing's been decided, and I deliberately at the ONS meeting said personally. All right. Yes. So no decision's been made on the future of the museum.
But it is your personal view as the lead counsellor with the heritage portfolio. But
you know, the days of a lead counsellor just being, you know, calling somebody into their office and saying, "Get on and do this," they're long gone.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Really. Okay. So we start with a mandate, and the mandate has options on, and we look at all those options, and we work through them, and we cost them, and so forth, and then a decision is made.
So if it's not you, then Councillor Redpath, who is it I should be speaking to?
It's not. No, I do have some influence, Martin. I do have some influence, but you have to you know, we have to be very prudent. We have to be very careful now. My feelings are that this council used to be a reasonably wealthy council. It never had to worry too much about how much was left in the bank at the end of the year. That's changed enormously now, and we really have to be very, very careful before we go into capital projects. And you know, capital has to be repaid, and that repayment has to come off the general fund. And if we're spending the repayments on capital projects on the general fund, then that's something else we can't spend that money on. So we've really got to just look at what is best.
Okay.
So
okay,
yeah, well, all in the air, all up in the air still.
Okay, well, Councillor Redpath, thank you very much again for your time, and I'll put a date in my diary for September to get back to you and see how we're going with customer services. Thank you.
I might not pick up the phone, Martin.
I have other ways. Okay. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.